Tonight, what's the deal with Donald Trump? He's moderating a GOP debate. The three candidates have dropped out already.
We've already set our calendar in December, and I communicated to Mr. Trump that schedule is completed.
Does anyone still want the Trump seal of approval?
The debate is December 27th. I'm looking to endorse somebody after that debate.
Has the Donald overstayed his political welcome? Tonight, I'll ask Donald Trump himself. Plus, the extraordinary life and times of the Queen of Hip-Hop Soul, Mary J. Blige.
I was dying. It was over. I was going to die. It didn't matter, but I didn't want to die.
This is Piers Morgan Tonight. Good evening. I've got to know Donald Trump pretty well over the last few years, and I can tell you he's a man who's used to being number one. But now he's getting flack from members of the Republican Party who are saying he's dumbing down the political dialogue in this country. Tonight, I'll give him a chance to respond. His latest book is Time to Get Tough, Making America number one again. And I'm delighted to say Donald Trump joins me again now. Donald, you're getting it in the neck a bit from your own people, really, the Republican candidates who seem to be queuing up to have a pop at you. Why is that, and do you care?
I don't really care, but I don't think I'm getting it too much. I think most people are totally in favor. We've had a great response. I have millions and millions of people on my websites, and they all want me to do something, and they want me to have debates. And as you know, a very, very good group of people, Newsmax, which is a big group and a powerful group, asked me if I'd moderate me to have debates. And as you know, a very, very good group of people, Newsmax, which is a big group and a powerful group, asked me if I'd moderate the debate, and I will if they want me to do that. And they certainly have strongly suggested it. But it certainly has gotten press. There's no question about it. But I consider it a great honor. We have, as you know, Newt is accepted and Rick Santorum's accepted. A couple are waiting to see. I think there's a lot of pressure on a lot of people, frankly. I think they're under tremendous strain and tremendous pressure. I was disappointed that Mitt Romney, who's been up to see me at Trump Tower and called me, and, you know, we've had numerous calls, wants very much to have my endorsement. I was actually very disappointed that he didn't do the debate. I was actually surprised. He's a good guy, but I was actually surprised that he didn't do the debate.
Yeah, I was surprised about that because I don't really understand what the big problem is, other than a bit of snobbery because you're not a conventional moderator, you're not a journalist or a TV host, but what you are is one of America's most successful business people. And I don't actually see any problem in you hosting a debate like this. I would imagine you would have some rather good questions for them.
Well, I know a lot of the moderators, and some are wonderful and some aren't, but I know the issues better than the moderators, that I can tell you, every issue better than the moderators. And I think it would be interesting. And, you know, I'm somebody that built a great book. I mean, my book really explains it. I built a great business, and I actually, in my financial disclosure forms, I actually printed the summary sheets in the book, and so people can see what a great company I've built. A tremendous net worth, tremendous cash, and very little debt. And that's what the country needs, frankly, on a larger scale. So, you know, I think I know the whole deal, and it would be, and I assume it's going to in some form take place. I think it'll be very successful, and I think it'll be very, very well viewed.
Did Mitt Romney call you himself to say he wasn't going to take part?
Yes, he did.
And what did he say?
Well, he couldn't have been nicer. I mean, he said, Donald, I am so busy, and that day I had roped off for something else, and and, you know, could not have been nicer, but still I was surprised because I think it would have been, as you know, I get very good ratings. You're a good example of it, okay? I mean, you did so well on the Celebrity Apprentice, and we get great ratings, and I get great ratings, and frankly, this debate, with the right people in it, would be very, very successful. And, you know, one of the things, just in thinking to myself, I think he's a terrific guy, but he is now down in the polls. And I know one thing, if I were down in the polls, I'd want to do every debate I could.
Let's move to a couple of the others who really did say some extraordinary things. John Huntsman said, we have declined to participate in the presidential apprentice debate with the Donald. I won't kiss his ring or any other part of his anatomy.
Well, I think it's just a figure of speech. And look, he's disappointed because he's having a hard time really getting numbers. And I think, I'll be honest, I don't know him at all, but he actually looks like a nice guy, and he seems like a nice guy. And as I was telling somebody before, he's been very good to the Wharton School of Finance, which is the school I went to, which I think is the best business school anywhere in the world. And the Wharton School is great, and he supports it, so I like that. But I don't know him at all. He just seems like a nice guy, and I think he's under a lot of pressure. But he does seem good.
So you're not going to miss him kissing any part of your anatomy?
No, I won't miss that at all. Believe me.
Ron Paul called the event Beneath the Office of the Presidency, which is a criticism a few people have come up with, that because you host the Celebrity Apprentice and so on, this makes it a form of a reality show. What do you say to those critics in particular?
Well, you have to understand, the reason I host Celebrity Apprentice and The Apprentice, and it's become one of the top shows on television, and as you know, many nights, in fact, for a period of time, it was the #1 show on television and continues to get great ratings. The reason I host it and the reason I'm a so-called, as they say, reality star is because of my success. And the reason I'm a so-called, as they say, reality star is because of my success. And that has nothing to do with television. That has to do with real estate and business. And that's why I was chosen to do it. Now, maybe there are some other reasons also, you know, whatever they may be, whatever it takes. But so I host this show, and it's a great show because of my success in business. So I like to think of myself as a businessman. When you look at my numbers in the book that show over $7 billion in net worth, that hasn't been taken too long to build relative to other families and companies, et cetera. And you look at the kind of cash I have, almost $300 million in cash. And when you look at the low debt, which is really what the country should be striving for, is low debt, lots of cash, tremendous worth, instead of owning $15 trillion, which is where we are right now as a country. So I think that, you know, when somebody says, say, Trump is a reality star and he shouldn't be hosting a debate, I'm only a reality star because I built a great company.
I couldn't agree more. I'm going to play a clip from Jon Stewart from The Daily Show last night. He was in euphoric mood when he heard you were hosting the debate. Let's watch this.
Holy this guy is moderating a debate. If the people in the debate he's moderating don't satisfy him, and he's jumping in himself.
So he's chortling away at you there, Donald. Do you care? Do you find him funny?
I think he's okay. I mean, to be honest, I don't get the humor. You know, he's got something going, I guess, because he's got a little bit of an audience, not a big audience. But I don't get his humor too much. You know, I think he's fine. I watch him on occasion. But I wouldn't say he's one of the funny men that I've ever heard.
Let's turn to Newt Gingrich. Newt Gingrich has accepted the invitation to come to the debate. He is the front runner. He is, right now, potentially the guy who will win the nomination. So you've got the main man.
Right.
Talk about Newt Gingrich for a moment. What do you think of the nation? So you've got the main man.
Right.
Talk about Newt Gingrich for a moment. What do you think of him?
Well, first of all, the debate is a Newsmax debate, and that's a very powerful organization, and they really are, and they've done an amazing job. It's not a Trump debate. It's a Newsmax, and they asked me if I do it. I am really impressed with Newt. I'm impressed from where he came. I'm impressed with the way he's handling himself. Even as an example, the debate, I mean, he was decisive. He was quick. He said, you know, this is a great opportunity to get some strong views on whether it's China. He knows that China and the world ripping us off, that's frankly a very big part of what I'm all about, because I see this country, it's being eaten alive from the outside. And that is by OPEC and China and South Korea and virtually any country you want to name. We're being just taken to the cleaners. You know, it used to be the other way, Piers. It used to be that we were great, we were strong, we were powerful, and now all of a sudden it's a whole different thing. It's a whole big different thing, and it's not that way anymore. Now everybody takes our lunch. We used to do it the opposite way, where we were strong and where we were great. So it's too bad, but that's the way it is.
Newt Gingrich said an interesting thing this week. He went after this whole issue of child labour, saying that lots of these kids in inner cities in particular aren't brought up to understand what an honest day's work is, that the only kind of work they experience when they're young tends to be of an illegal kind. And he got hammered for it. I thought he made a few good points. What is wrong inherently with young Americans in these troubled areas learning the value of a dollar? What did you think of his point that he made?
Well, I don't think he said it the way you said it. I think he said something very different. He was talking about examples and people to look up to. And he was saying that, you know, many of these children don't have people to look up to. people that leave the house early in the morning and come back late because they've been working hard all day. And he took a little bit of heat from that from some people, and a lot of people agree with him. I happen to agree with him. I mean, this is a society where you have to get out. A bit of heat from that from some people, and a lot of people agree with him. I happen to agree with him. I mean, this is a society where you have to get out there and you have to work. I mean, one of the problems we have in this country is, as I told you before, other people taking advantage of us, but everybody has to get out there and work. And he was talking about examples. He was using examples. And people need examples. I had a great example. My father was a very, very hard worker. He really worked. And I watched that, and, you know, he enjoyed his life. He really liked his life. He was happy. But he was happiest working. And I would see that growing up, and it was like by osmosis. I would sort of say, hey, that's pretty cool, and I love working. So I don't think what he said was at all bad, and a lot of people agree with that, but some people disagree.
Yeah, I mean, just to clarify, he did talk about the role model thing, but he also said that the child labour laws are truly stupid, that children in poor neighbourhoods don't have the habit of working nor getting paid for their endeavours unless it's illegal. So he made that other point too, which, you know, has got him into hot water, but at least he's thinking, I guess, about the way to get people back to work. Let's have a break, Donald. When we come back, I want to talk to you about time to get tough, what you would do as one of America's top and most successful employers to get these unemployment figures right down. That's my special guest, Donald Trump. Donald, Barack Obama this week came out with a big speech basically saying that the middle classes have been let down in this country, that it's time to tax the rich more and to extend tax breaks effectively, tax cuts for the middle classes. What do you think of that as a principle?
Well, he's really playing the class warfare very hard. I watched the speech actually, and I guess from his standpoint, it's the way he's going to go because not a lot of good things are happening with our country in terms of the economy and what's going on. Even if you look at the recent job numbers where 315,000 people gave up and therefore they don't include them as unemployed, which is ridiculous. But, you know, a lot of things aren't going really right for him. So he's going with class warfare, probably a very smart thing for him in terms of getting elected, but a really bad thing for the country.
You know, a lot of CEOs have come out saying they don't disagree with what he's saying in principle, that maybe there should be a sliding taxation rate with the rich paying more. And you said this yourself, I think you said in the book. But they don't like the tone, they don't like the rhetoric because it does smack of class warfare. Is there a better way for him to say the same thing?
Well, I think there are a lot of better ways. And as far as taxes are concerned, it's a very dangerous time to be raising taxes because, frankly, the rich and, you know, if you want to say the rich, but we already pay and corporations in this country are actually the most heavily taxed companies in the world. OK, we're literally number one or number two on every list. And so a lot of taxes are being paid. The problem we have is spending. The money gets spent far faster than they can get it. You know, when the money gets spent far faster than they can get it. You know, when you owe $15 trillion, when you're borrowing from other countries, all of a sudden this country is like in a different ballgame from where it was. So it's a pretty tough situation, but it's a very fragile economy, and it's a very, very dangerous time to be raising taxes. That I can tell you.
There were two things that happened last week which were significant. One is the stock market enjoyed its best week performance-wise since Barack Obama became president in 2009. And secondly, the employment figures fell to the lowest level since he became president. Both of those things, whichever way you get into the detail, are clearly good news for him, because if they'd gone the other way, it would be bad news. What do you read into that? Is there any momentum now building even slowly in the American economy, or is this false hope, do you think?
Well, I hope there's momentum. I mean, it's been a long time, and I hope there's some momentum. The employment numbers are very dangerous to look at because of the amount of people that quit. And under the new way of calculating, if you're looking for a job and you stop, they don't put you on. I mean, it's ridiculous, but they don't consider you to be unemployed. So if you add those numbers back in, those numbers are much different than the numbers reported. Look, I hope the economy's getting better. Certainly, I mean, between interest rates being very low and other things, the problem that we also have is banks. Banks don't loan money. If somebody wants to buy a house, it's virtually impossible to get the money from a bank. And it's even if they have good credit. Even when mortgages are coming due on people that have been paying a mortgage for 10 and 15 and 20 years, they can't get money or they can't get an extension from a bank. So The banks are really not behaving properly, that I can tell you.
Whenever you come on my show, Donald, I'm always very grateful that you do, and you talk a lot of sense. I get more reaction to you than I do to almost any other guest. And some of it's negative. Most of it, I'd say, is positive from real people. The media give you, I think, an irrationally kind of what I call a caricature. Media give you, I think, an irrationally kind of what I call a caricature image. But when I hear you talk like this, I hear somebody who has flirted with the idea of running for president many times, but who, you know, by your own admission, you said if you looked at the situation around this time and there was still a kind of lack of a real potential winner here against Barack Obama, you would be tempted seriously to run. Aren't we in that situation? I mean, are you not genuinely tempted?
Well, first of all, I never flirted many times. People have always wanted me to run. I never wanted to. I never flirted at all. And then 4 years ago or 8 years ago, I looked at it just briefly for a period of a few days and just decided it wasn't for me. I really like what I'm doing, as you know, probably better than most. So, you know, I'm going to see what happens. Number one, let's look at the economy. Let's see where the economy's going. I don't think the economy's going to get much better. And possibly it's going to get much worse. We're going to have to see. But more importantly, right now, you have to see who is going to be the Republican candidate. I'm going to endorse somebody, Piers, fairly soon. And depending on how that person does, or if they pick somebody else, doesn't have to be endorsed by me, that I think is good, I would not run. I'd be very happy not to run. If, on the other hand, they pick somebody that's not going to win or that's not going to do a good job, which is possible, that could happen, then I might very well look at running. But I never really looked at it before. This is the first time I looked at it very seriously. And as you know, I was leading in the polls when I got out. And the only reason I got out is you have equal time provisions where I'm not allowed to have this very successful show and run for president. Sort of unfair, because the president can go on Jay Leno and he can go on your show and he can go on every other show and there's no equal time. But if I have a show, or if anybody has a show, and especially a very high-profile, successful show, you're not allowed to run, essentially, because of the equal time provision. So when I got out, I was leading in the polls, and I'm very honored by that. In fact, I was watching Meet the Press the day before the upfronts from NBC. Got out, I was leading in the polls, and I'm very honored by that. In fact, I was watching Meet the Press the day before the upfronts from NBC, and it had Trump at the top of the polls, and I'm saying, what am I doing? But you know, if the Republicans choose somebody great, I have no interest in impeding them. That I can tell you.
And would it be fair to say that right now it would be pretty unthinkable that you would endorse anybody outside of Romney or Gingrich?
Well, I don't want to say that. I just don't really want to get into that, because over the next few weeks, I'm going to make an endorsement, and I don't want to give any clues. A lot of people are looking for who I'm going to be endorsing, and I just don't want to get into that quite yet. But they do have some excellent people. I'm not saying all of them, but they have some excellent people running or trying to run, and we'll see what happens. I've gotten to know most of them. I respect many of them, and I'll make an endorsement sometime over the next 3 or 4 weeks.
Would you consider being a vice president to any of these candidates?
I don't think so. I mean, again, I love what I'm doing. My company has never done better. Even though times are bad, I've sort of made some pretty wise decisions. And I just love what I'm doing. I love the real estate business. I love all of the businesses I'm in. And I don't see it. But, you know, I would do anything that's good for this country. If somebody told me that whatever they wanted me to do, it was going to be great for the country or good for the country, I would do it. I think, frankly, they should have me or somebody like me negotiating with foreign countries our trade pacts, because whoever is negotiating our trade pacts is doing a horrible job. When China makes $350 billion this year, when Colombia makes $4 billion, when all of these countries, everybody makes. And, you know, we can't have a great country if we're not going to have a rich country. When you talk about Social Security, when you talk about Medicare and Medicaid, all of those problems go away. I mean, you make adjustments and everything else, but they go away with a really strong country and a strong economy. So, you know, what they should have somebody like me doing is leading a negotiation of trade pacts. You know, what they should have somebody like me doing is leading a negotiation of trade pacts, because we are being hurt badly by incompetent people.
If one of these Republican candidates came to you and they became president next November, for argument's sake, and they said, look, Donald, we would like you to now be the trade negotiator for America with China, with OPEC and so on, would you take that job?
Well, I certainly would consider that because we need that. That's so vital. I can't believe some of the deals. I mean, you look at the deal that we made with South Korea recently. You look at some of the other deals. I'm saying, do we have anybody even negotiating for us? It's inconceivable. And, you know, I was very honored the other day. Michelle Bachmann said, no, I'd want Donald Trump to be my vice president. I'm sitting here watching this television show or debate or whatever was going on. And she immediately announced Trump as vice president. I've had others say we'd like him to negotiate our pacts. The fact is, I do a great job. I really would. It's a strength. I'm very good at it. I would do and I do it in a friendly manner. But I would do a great job at negotiating great deals for this country with respect to other countries who are now just eating our lunch.
Let's take a final break, Donald. Let's come back very quickly and talk about Lady Gaga, because in your book, you seem to be claiming full credit for her glorious career. I want to find out why. But now my guest, Donald Trump. Donald, it's a fascinating book, as all your books, of course, are. That's why they sell so many. A great story in there about Lady Gaga, that she apparently may owe her success to you.
Well, that's not true. She owes it to her talent and her drive. But it was interesting. 4 or 5 years ago, I owned the Miss Universe pageant, and we choose talent for sort of like our halftime. And it's been an amazing thing. We've found some amazing people, and sometimes they're big stars, and everybody wants to do it. And then sometimes it's a young, aspiring talent. And in this case, it was Vietnam. I think it was probably close to 5 years ago, and we put Lady Gaga on. Now, we don't even pay them anything, but it's broadcast all over the world. And she went on, and there was like a frenzy. Everybody wanted to know who was the entertainer on the show. Everybody wanted to know who was the entertainer on the show, because, as you know, it's broadcast, again, all over the world and, you know, live in the United States, et cetera, et cetera. And they weren't saying who won the contest. They were saying who was the entertainer. It was Lady Gaga. And then she really, I mean, it was a tremendous boost. And then what happened is, about a year ago, when she did a huge show at Radio City Music Hall, I was sitting in the audience with a tremendous number of major celebrities. And her manager came up to me after the show, Mr. Trump, Gaga wants to see you in the back. Nobody else, nobody else. It was a little embarrassing to me, but she was great. She hasn't forgotten. And I know her, and she's a terrific person and a great talent. But we put her on the Miss Universe contest, and to be honest with you, she was amazing. And the next day, everybody wanted to know who the hell was that.
Yeah, she's a phenomenal talent. You've got this debate coming up in... The debate's coming in 3 weeks, Donald. Before we go, just want to get a little inkling of what you're going to ask these guys who do turn up, Gingrich and the others. Where do you think the key issues are?
Well, I think there are a lot of key issues. You can talk about health care, you can talk about Obamacare, what the views are and everything else, but a lot of it you've heard. But you can also talk about OPEC, and you can talk about how OPEC is just ripping off this country and how everybody is ripping off the country. And that's something I haven't seen in the debates. And honestly, I haven't heard it from President Obama. They don't talk about it. They're not talking about what's happening on the outside of our country, where they're just eating us alive, and we can't allow it to continue to happen, or we're not going to have a country. So I find that it's been very, very weakly touched on, and it should be one of the most important things. When you talk about jobs, and we're outsourcing to India and outsourcing to everywhere, why can't we have those jobs in our communities, in Alabama and in Iowa and Nebraska? Why are we doing outsourcing to India? You call up for a credit card and you want to find information. Half the time somebody picks up the phone and they're stationed in India. What's going on? Why India? What's going on? Why do we do that? And why do we create incentives for that? So I'd get into that very much, because ultimately employment's never going to be down if we're going to continue to do this.
And you're going to give them a hard time, Donald, if they start taking you on and shirking the questions?
No, I don't think I'd. Look, first of all, I know them and I respect them. And honestly, I don't see giving them a hard time. We have a problem, Piers. We have a country that's in serious, serious trouble. And somebody and something has to be done about it.
Well, strong words, Donald. It's a good book. Time to get tough, making America #1 again. And I will, for one, be watching that debate with great interest. I think it'd be great, great sport, great entertainment, good politics. And there's nothing wrong with that. So good luck with it.
Thank you very much, Piers.